All right. Good morning. Welcome to Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Audu Moro. Inside Pages this morning is looking at two very important but also very controversial issues that have come up in the course of the week. Is it November 7 or December 7? The Electoral Commission is making some amendments. It's actually fiercely pushing for some amendments to be made with the Constitution to enable Ghana to hold its elections on November 7. The Electoral Commission is citing reasons such as the fact that these were amendments that were actually proposed as far back as in 2015, and so they are only implementing these amendments. The NDC, on the other hand, is saying no, the timing is problematic, and that organizationally is going to create a lot of problems. We'll delve into the pros and cons of this proposal for Ghana to hold its elections on November 7, I'm talking about both presidential and parliamentary, and some of the hurdles that we would have to cross if indeed we have to go that route. That's the first topic on Inside Pages today. Now, the second topic is also another controversial one. The second topic has to do with yet another proposal. Now, this proposal came up, again, as I did indicate, in the course of this week. And it's been debated quite widely. It has to do with vote buying. And the big question as to whether Ghana has lost its fight against vote buying. And we're talking about a phenomenon where people are actually paid money, physical cash, or given all kinds of inducement, either TV sets, they're giving mobile phones, they're giving all kinds of things for them to vote for a particular candidate or the other. And we know what the consequences are when people sell their votes. Typically, they get to vote the wrong person into that position. And then the people come back and complain about why they're not getting the kinds of public services that they expect. So these are the two very important conversations that we intend to have. When I come back after this break, I'll tell you who my resource persons are, who are ready to deal with the vexed issues. I'll be right back. All right, so welcome back. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. Thank you very much for tuning in. You've made the right choice. You made the right decision. So Inside Pages, as I did indicate earlier today, we're looking at two very important topics. These are great. These are very critical conversations we need to have. One is about the vote buying phenomenon, which appears to be on the increase. We've seen what happened with the just ended the MPP's parliamentary elections. We saw the kinds of items that were being distributed here and there. We've had civil society organizations, we've had traditional authorities, we've had the clergy, we have had Ghanaians complaining bitterly about this vote buying culture. There's this madness that has characterized our democracy, where you put yourself up for a position, you're going to tell the delegates or the electors to vote for you, and the electorates are asking you to give them money, to give them cars, to give them this, to give them that, and it drains these aspirants or these contestants. And so when the person pays you what you're expecting them to pay you, how do you expect the person to recoup the money when the person becomes an MP or becomes an assemblyman or whatever? So we have a big problem there. And I don't know how else we intend to solve this problem, because with all kinds of proposals have come through, but it doesn't appear that we're making any headway. So we want to see whether we can use this morning to propose some very cogent, very practical, and well thought through solutions to this menace of vote buying. But we will start with an issue which potentially would make the NDC and the Electoral Commission cross swords. What is it? The Electoral Commission is saying that this year it wants to change the voting day from the conventional 7th December and bring it forward to November 7. The reason is simple, that this was the proposal was made as far back as in 2015. But they have thought it wise to implement it or to listen to that proposal in 2024. We are in February. The Electoral Commission says it can't pull it off. The NDC says you can't, because you don't have enough time to pull this off. Let's go with the time-tested 7th December. There's no problem with the 7th December. If it is not broken Why fix it? We've been fine. We've been practicing this from 1992. Why do you want to shift it to November 7? What is it? What's the Electoral Commission on about? That NDC is suspicious about what the Electoral Commission is trying to do. The Electoral Commission says, well, we've nothing to hide. We're just doing our job. We want the transition process after the person has been declared, till the person as a winner, till when the person is inducted as president, to be a smooth process. In any case, the Electoral Commission says, in case there is a runoff, we should be able to have enough time between the time the votes, the last election ends and when the new one will be conducted. We must have enough time to be able to do it in a manner that doesn't put, a lot of pressure on the Electoral Commission. So both of them are arguing. Now, here's the thing. The New Patriotic Party has said, well, as for them, anything goes, even though they are more, they are more tilted towards the November 7, voting day. But if the Electoral Commission says that to go back to December 7, they're fine with it. But then they're asking the NDC, you're the one who say that Ghanaians want MPP out of power today. So if they bring it forward, that's good for you. So why are you running away from November 7? So it's a very interesting debate that's happening. But this is what I'm going to do. I want us to watch this video. After watching this video, I'll come back and speak to my resource persons. So I have 4 people who will be speaking on this, on the 2 topics today. Now, the first person I want to introduce is Shamima Muslim. Now, Shamima Muslim is the founder of Alliance for Women in Media Africa, not Ghana, Africa. So Shamima is on Zoom. I want to believe Shamima is actually on Zoom. Shams, are you there? Good morning. Okay. Right. Okay, Shams will be joining us via Zoom shortly. But also have Dr. John Osai-Kwapon of the CDD. He's a CDD fellow, Talking Ghana branch, and also a political scientist. Dr. John Osai-Kwapon, I hope you are already on Zoom, aren't you? Good morning. Good morning, Doc. Okay, Doc will join us shortly as well. Let me also say that I will be joined by the Member of Parliament for that's the Asante North constituency. That's Andy Apiakubi. He will also be joining us shortly. Let me also say that if you have any views you want to express, the number is there, 0249-155-646, I'll be more than happy to hear what you think about the two topics that we're putting before you this morning. Let's watch this video. When we come back, hopefully my resource persons will join. And Kofi Adams, Kofi Adams, the MP for Buem, he'll be joining us in the studio with Andy Apiakubi. So let's watch this video.
After several months of boycotting IPAC for unfair treatment by the Jane Mensah-led administration, the biggest opposition party, the NDC, returned to contribute to key subjects ahead of the 2024 general elections. Matters such as moving the voting dates from December 7 to November 7 were tabled.
Hope that the very issues that took the NDC out will be addressed. When we agree on matters, let's implement them as they are. We've even asked the EC to form a special committee to delve into the register so that we can clean it and ensure that we have a foolproof register way ahead of the next registration. As we speak, we do not have the calendar of activities for the Electoral Commission.
Other political parties, including the New Patriotic Party and the PNC, were excited to have the NDC's presence and contribution at IPAC after a long absence.
The NDC were with us last week. I think it's not bad for them to change their position. In any case, the prodigal son later came home, and so they've been welcome. I think it will help that when they are here, they will get to know how issues are discussed and how it helps the EC to take certain position, and so they are welcome.
Okay. And IPAC has never been the same ever since they left. In fact, they left a vacuum, and now coming back, they have filled that distance. And IPAC, they were even supposed to organize a party for them today. I don't know why the party has not come on, because Electoral Commission promised that they will organize a party for them.
The proposed November date of the 2024 elections has been topical for weeks as the Electoral Commission considers it crucial for parties to have enough time to address any challenges that may arise from voting.
New Patriotic Party stated its position that we don't have any problem if the EC is going to have elections conducted on the 7th. However, if it doesn't change from December, we are all for it.
Okay.
We've asked the EC to broaden its consultation, to engage other parties, other interested bodies, and look at it properly. We don't think that the holiday will have any influence on the voting population. And so if it is not holiday, it doesn't spoil anything. Yeah.
For now, any decision on the possible change of the elections to November 7 has been moved to the 2028 elections. Though the MPP does not have any problem with the November date, other parties believe the EC must focus on immediate concerns of the 2024 elections.
When the next registration will take place, we can't determine that date. So we expect them to bring the register. When the calendar of activities, when all these things have not been done, how do you even overburden yourself with other issues when you had 2017 to 2029 before the 2020 elections, 2021 to 2023 before the 2024 elections? So this was the reasoning that was overwhelming. Said that the consensus was, look, bright ideas, let us look at them, but let the date of effectiveness be the 2028 election.
Other analysts and experts believe the November 7 date will give the winning party enough time to transition into government, a position the NDC opposes vehemently.
In a recent proposal, the Electoral Commission proposed a date for both presidential and parliamentary elections. The Electoral Commission also wants election days in Ghana to be designated as national holidays. The Electoral Commission is considering shifting the general election date from December 7 to November 7. Editor of the Insight newspaper, Kwesi Pratt Jr. says EC's proposal to shift the election date is uncalled for, as it is not the most pressing issue the Commission needs to reform.
We should avoid a situation where election results are announced on mere sheets of paper, without signature, without letterhead. We should avoid it. We should put in the mechanism to ensure that election results, do not exceed, the number of votes cast, do not exceed, declared, do not exceed the number of registered voters as well. These are the important things. As for the rest, Massa, I don't think they're so very crucial.
Meanwhile, former Member of Parliament for Thema East and Chief Executive Officer of VALCO, Daniel Nyikwete Titus Glover says the decision lies with the political parties.
And the fact that attempt they made in 2016 did not succeed, now they want to bring this on board, it's left for the political parties to determine it. And when you look at the reasons that they are given, whether it is early or it is late, I think it serves the same purpose. Because when there should be a runoff, you have, is it 20 days or 21 days?
21.
To run. Then you have to prepare for transition and handing over. And that rush is not helpful.
A recent proposal for changing the election date has come from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This proposal comes after the Seventh-day Adventist Church petitioned the Commission to move the election day from the regular day of December 7 because it falls on Saturday, its day of worship.
Well, so this then sets the tone for what promises to be a very interesting conversation this morning. And you saw that. You heard the MPP's position on the matter. You heard the NDC's position on this matter. I also have an article which has actually been authored by Dr. Maniboma, who's the Director of Elections of the NDC. At some point, I may have to read it because it captures very succinctly what the position of the Director of Elections is as far as this matter is concerned. It's not a very long one. It's about a two-pager, but I'll see. I mean, if it becomes extremely necessary, I'll read it. But let me say that Dr. John Osakwapong has joined us now. He's on Zoom. Doc, good morning. Thank you very much for accepting to join us on Inside Pages on Metro Television. Thank you.
Good morning. My pleasure.
Wonderful, wonderful. We initially had some technical issue, but it's been sorted. That's wonderful. I hope that Shamima will also be joining us at some point. Shamima, are you on or not? All right, Shams will join us. She will. She's getting ready to join us. Let me say that I have the Member of Parliament for the Buem constituency, the Honorable Kofi Adams. He's here with us. Honorable, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Pages. It's good to have you. Right. Right. Oh, sorry, your microphone apparently is off. So if you can put it on. Yours just switched out. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Good morning, Moru. And I think this is the first time
you're here.
I'm here for
2024.
the year. So it will be appropriate to still wish you a happy new year. I know things are not good. You cannot be happy, but once God has given us life, we have to thank God for that. And let me take this opportunity to wish my constituents well, my great constituents of Buem constituency, and specifically to wish a good brother of mine a happy birthday, Mohamed Wiafi, a.k.a. Guy 90.
Yeah.
And let me use this opportunity to wish him a very, very happy birthday.
Okay. All right. So I want us to check something out briefly before I bring in Doctor, because I want to start with Dr. John Kwachi on this. So check this out. Right. So the NDC opposes EC's plan to change election day. So this is the NDC's official position on this matter. Now it says, the National Democratic Congress states without equivocation that the Electoral Commission's quest to hold the general elections in November 2024 will not be supported by the NDC. Now, the announcement by Dr. Bosman Asari, the Deputy Chairman, Corporate Services of the EC, does not reflect the irrefutable arguments that led to the consensus that any major electoral reforms should become effective from November 2028. Whereas there was a clear consensus on 2028 as the year of effectiveness, it is untrue that the majority of political parties at IPAC agreed to the November 2024 date. It is therefore strange, but not unexpected, that Dr. Bosman Asari will mislead the general public that almost about 60% of political parties supported the proposal for elections to be held in November 2024 at the IPAC meeting held on Monday, January 29, 2024. IPAC needs to return to its time-honored tradition of building consensus on crucial electoral reforms. Be that as it may, it is important to clarify that out of the 10 political parties at the IPAC meeting, at least 5 spoke eloquently against changing the date for elections to November 2024. We urge the Electoral Commission to concentrate on germane and urgent matters, including immediately releasing the calendar for the 2024 elections as we strive for transparent, free, and fair elections in December 2024. Now, this is signed by Fifi Fiavi Kwete, General Secretary, NDC. Well, I've just had somebody ask me a question. So November or December, what difference will it make? Whoever will win will win. Okay, that's interesting. Anyway, so let me start with Dr. John Osai Kwapo. Doc, once again, let me say thank you very much for joining us. Maybe I'll start with a question that, a viewer just posed. Of course, the person would like to remain anonymous for good reasons. So, November or December, what difference will that make? Whoever will win will win. Can we proceed on that statement? How would you respond to a question like this?
Well, I mean that's true, right? Whoever would win the 2024 election would win. If you move it forward a month, if you move it back later a month, I'm suspecting that whoever would win would win. In fact, if you look at the pre-election survey done in 2016 by Professor Usu Mensah, who was formerly with the Political Science Department, but now is the Director for Research and Policy at the Presidency. He asked a time frame question about when did you make up your mind in terms of who you would vote for, and I think it was almost about 70 to 80% had made up their mind almost 6 months before the election who they were going to vote for. Right. So the person who sent the message is correct that generally most people know what they are going to do in December, or if it is moved to November. But I think there are a number of other questions that arise. So from the various statements, news reports that I've read, there are a number of reasons being alluded to as to why the EC is mulling this change or has brought it to IPAC for the political parties to decide. One is, I read something about managing the runoff, right? So between the first round and in the event that there's a runoff. But even if you have the election in November or December, if I'm correct, the framework is that the runoff has to be conducted 2 weeks after the first round, right, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So
in fact, it's 21 days actually. 21 days, yes.
Okay, 21 days. Okay. So 21 days, maybe it gets you, if you do it in November, the first round in November, then that 21 days moves you a little further away from swearing in date, right? The inauguration date, which is January 7th. But if you still have that 3 weeks to 21 days to manage the runoff without an eye towards January 7th inauguration, then I don't see how moving it to November or December makes material difference to the process of managing and preparing for the runoff, unless it is tied to, if we have it on December 7th and there's a runoff, 21 days, that means what, around the 28th, 29th, and, it only leaves another 1.5 weeks, for quote unquote transition and the inauguration date. So that's one. The other issue that I've read about, in terms of the other reason I've read about, is boosting public participation. If anybody who looks at public participation in our elections, the turnout rate, we don't have an issue with getting Ghanaians to the polls to vote. On average, our turnout is 72%, right? I mean, some advanced democracies would envy, or even other places would even envy an average turnout rate of 72%. If you look at the range, it's be between 62%, and we've even hit as high as 86% in the 2004 election. Is over 90 or 90 something percent. I'm not sure what boosting public participation means, in the eyes of the EC as it relates to moving the election from December to November. But I would agree in principle if the move is to give enough time to resolve any issues, be they the transition issues or be they legal disputes that may arise between the voting day and inauguration day, assuming that the winner is able to secure a one-touch victory on the first round, right? But then even our legal disputes around elections, we've seen that it does take quite a bit of time to get resolved. So I'm really not, and I'm not privy to the conversations that the political parties have been having, at IPAC. But I'm not really sure then what the true case is for moving the election from December to November. Like I said, on my third point, if it is to give us enough time to resolve any issues that may arise between voting day and inauguration day, then yes, it would make sense, right? So if you held the election in November, or on November, the first Tuesday of November, right, then you have a couple of weeks in December. Sorry, a couple of weeks in November. The full month of December. So that gives you what, maybe a good 7-8 weeks to get ready, for inauguration. So that, those are my initial thoughts on this whole idea of this proposal coming from the EC.
Right. Now, there are, unfortunately, and these things typically happens. Anytime there's an IPAC meeting, when the political parties or when the stakeholders come out, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you don't get to hear exactly what the position was in terms of what the unanimous consensus was. So, for instance, we've heard the NDC say that during the IPAC meeting, or at IPAC, the decision was that in principle, the political parties are saying, yes, the November 7 election day is a good one. However, majority did not agree that it must be done this year and that it should be done in 2028, right? So that's what the NDC rep, that's Dr. Manimbo, will tell you. But then you have the Electoral Commission who then came out to say more than 60% of the participants at IPAC, or the stakeholders at IPAC, did not only say they agree with the change in the timetable per se, but they also agree that it must be done this year. So you see, that's where the challenge is. So then it becomes the word of the NDC as against what the Electoral Commission is saying. But be that as it may, do you think that if this proposal or the implementation of this policy, which is to change it from December to November, if this conversation had started, say, last year, do you think that would have made a difference?
Except that I'm also hearing that the main opposition party is saying that one of the sort of gentleman agreement is that no major electoral reforms should take place in an election
6 months before the
election year.
Yes, it's there. Absolutely.
Right. So I'm suspecting that even if this conversation had started a year ago, if the idea is that you don't make major electoral reforms in the election year, then perhaps it wouldn't have made a difference. Okay. The other thing I want to say about IPAC is that if I understand the way IPAC is designed to work, I have been under the impression that it's a forum for consensus building and not necessarily a forum for majority decision making, right? So let's say if you have 10 political parties and there's an issue for them to discuss at IPAC, the goal is to get all 10 to arrive at some consensus on a particular issue and not necessarily to arrive at what percentage of the parties around the table agree with the idea, and then you move with the idea. At the same time, I know that the EC is designed to be independent and therefore is not at the beck and call and the mercy of political parties. But there is a reason why IPAC has also proven to be an important forum that allows the political parties to have a seat at the table and build consensus around important electoral matters, given that they are key stakeholders in an election. If you listen to Dr. Farijan's Constitution Day lecture, he described the work of the EC and the role of IPAC, in my words, as this sort of balancing act, right? That you use it as a forum, to get the input of an important stakeholder like political parties in electoral matters. But at the same time, you also ensure that the ideas that may emerge from IPAC, if they would be injurious to the electoral process, that you would have the EC also being able to assert its independence and push back on any such matters or any such. So it's a really good balancing act, and I'm just hoping that on some of these matters, that approach of consensus building vis-a-vis the EC's independent powers would be brought to bear, so we arrive at at a decision that everybody can go go home happy with.
All right, let me bring in.
And that real quick, the NDC has been out of IPAC for some time. It's a very welcome decision that they are back at the table.
Right.
So I think it will be good that their return to IPAC is one that fosters more collaboration and conversation, and not, again, a return to some of these differences with the institution.
All right, let me bring in Shamima now. Shamima, what do you? I don't know where you stand on this. I mean, first of all, does it bother you that we're back to this November, December thing? That doesn't make a difference to you? I don't know where your thoughts are.
Thank you very much, Moro. Good morning, everyone, and good morning to Kofi Adams as well. I haven't seen him in such a long time.
Yeah, he's actually giving you a wave. He's giving you a wave. He's giving you a wave, yes.
Kofi.
Yes, Shamima.
See your face. I've missed you.
I've missed you more.
Good to see you after such a long time. Yeah. So, Mo.
Yes.
On this particular matter, you are right. I mean, in an election year, we must have very few and little distractions from the main purpose as possible. And sometimes I also have to lay the blame squarely at the door front of the Electoral Commission. I'm sorry to say this, because I was really very active in the last district level elections, and all the challenges that came up, all because the Electoral Commission also sought to implement some reforms towards the beginning of that year. They laid a CI, there was a lot of controversy, So when you want to start an electoral reform, you don't control all the variables, and you definitely don't control the eventual outcome, whether the reforms would see the light of day, whether they'll be able to pass the legal requirements to begin the execution and enforcement. Sometimes are all not within your hands or your control. That is why you must, as practically as possible, begin the process very early. I, in principle, do not also think that electoral reforms should happen within the election year, especially when they are contested issues. If the issues are agreeable and Parliament is on standby to use, certificate of urgencies to pass the necessary legislative frameworks to allow for amendments, then we don't have an issue. But this, especially this election, is very, it's high stakes.
Yeah.
Is high stakes, and I should think that all the political parties would not want to be distracted too much by some of these issues. They would like to focus on their campaigns, on their internal political party mechanisms, on deploying their resources, and also on being vigilant and keeping an eye on the issues that would determine the elections. When we throw some of these things in at this time, we spend so much valuable time debating. So here we are now debating pros and cons when we have even passed that bridge in principle, because I also agree, because of our history and some of the challenges we have had, especially when there was a runoff, that it makes reasonable sense to push it back. I mean, the law is made for man, not man for the law, and it's man who makes the law. So if it's not addressing our issues, it is us who should sit around the table cooperatively, collaboratively, and make the necessary amendments at the right time, indeed. So if this conversation had been tabled last year, or even 2 years before the elections, when we don't even know who the candidates are, because Moro, apart from the legal and the concerns about, breaches and rigging, there are also all kinds of spiritual things. People go, yes, dog, I see you are laughing, but it's true. Maybe somebody is told that, no, if you hold this election on this day, you are not going to win this election. So even before we know who the candidates are, nobody is going to see any, soothsayer to say that, because we don't know who the candidates are. So it is, for me, the best time to even propose reforms, because reforms are to be lessons drawn from, past events. So we have held an election. We know what the problems are. We've held it for how many number of times now. We know what the germane issues are. If we really want electoral reforms, let's table them at least 2 years before the next elections.
Yeah.
Where the interest and the stakeholders are not clear, and everybody is really seeking in the interest of the future of their own candidates to take the best set of decision for the country and for themselves. But when you propose it at this time, especially when we saw the problems with the district level elections, the EC wasted so much time seeking reforms within the election year, and it didn't happen.
Right.
It didn't happen. So only towards the last quarter did we even have an announcement that the election will happen in December. And what happened during the election day, some areas had to be postponed because there were problems with electoral material. So these are germane problems. For me, I should think that in principle, I agree that we should bring back the date of the election. November 7th is not a bad date. And also because you don't want the Electoral Commission acting and perceived to be responding to only the demand by a sector, a religious sector, the SDA. What if the Muslims also come up? What if the traditional also come up? You see, so what has worked over time, let's not tweak it too much, because even the counter argument I was hearing is that, okay, let's just say the first Tuesday of November.
Yeah.
And Islam, our dates, our celebratory dates are not predetermined. Yeah. So Salah can fall on that first Tuesday of November.
Yeah.
It can fall on that. So should we also say we want a holiday? Do you see it?
I guess
so. We should just stick to what works. I don't think that we should explore those particular reforms that are contentious now. If there are other reforms that are really not contentious, that we can quickly go through the process, by all means, let us consider them. Okay. But the Electoral Commission must take a huge part of the blame in always tabling these things too late in the day.
Shams, thank you very much. It's good to hear your thoughts on this. Now, let me come to Mr. Kofi Adams. Mr. Kofi Adams, the argument has been made that, the NDC in 2016 was very supportive of this policy, which is to hold elections on November 7th. So the question is, what has changed? Why are you now against it? So that's the question that's been asked.
Well, Moru, it's very clear that the NDC is not opposed
to November 7th.
To November 7th elections.
Okay.
The NDC is opposed to having that happening for the 2024 general elections.
Oh, all right. I get it.
Because we do not have enough time to prepare for that in 2024.
Yeah, but you don't organize elections. The Electoral Commission that organizes elections.
Clearly,
they say they have enough time.
No. Elections are organized by Electoral Commission, but for political parties.
Okay.
You see, they say, if you don't know death, just look at sleep. We've just had a district level elections. You are very much aware that this election was postponed several times. More than 2 times it was postponed when it should have happened. Finally, what happened? We saw elections being run in bits and pieces because the Electoral Commission was not prepared enough.
Operational challenges.
Operational challenges. Ballots not properly printed, ballots not properly aligned, not enough ballots here, shifting of candidates' position, just because they have to rush within a certain short time to get it done. We don't want a repeat of this in the general elections, where interest is so high. So instead of begging for more time, don't be reducing the time that is already available to you. That is 1. 2, this is an Electoral Commission that has been complaining so much about timely release of what? Funds. And that the non-release of funds on time has largely also affected their programming. We in Parliament, when I say we, I'm referring to Parliament, when they raised these concerns, we took it upon ourselves when we were debating their report to appeal to the President to get his finance minister to at least release their funds on time for them. That hasn't happened. We haven't seen that commitment yet. But the Electoral Commission is seeking to move ahead of themselves to shorten the time that is available for them. You don't do that because many of the things that they do are time bound. For example, you cannot have voter transfers 42 days before a general elections. So, for example, if you are bringing the elections date to say 7th November, when you have not even given indication as to when you are going to conduct your limited registration to update your voter register, when will voters have opportunity to fall within the 42 days to even be able to transfer their votes? You are also supposed to have the final register go through the processes of certification and be made available to political parties at least 21 days before the general elections. What it means is that if you are bringing the date to 7th November, you are further shifting your at least 21 days further away from November, possibly into early what? October. Would you be ready by then? Considering that January is already gone.
Yeah.
February may go without us having the limited registration.
True.
We may end up doing this either in May or June. You are now going to go through the processes to exhibit this register after you've done all the necessary deduplications and what have you. After exhibition, it goes through further corrections. Then it goes through adjudication and to be certified. And when certified, it must be submitted to registered political parties 21 days before the general election. So this Electoral Commission is running over itself.
So that explains why you're saying that you doubt.
We completely doubt. Because, no, as we speak
If the
now,
Electoral Commission can do this.
they can do it. So they must not mess us up. The truth of the matter is that Electoral Commission is not responsible for transition.
Well, that's true.
Transitional matters are in the bosom of Parliament and the elected and outgoing
Executives.
We can manage it and have managed it in the past when even Electoral Commission have declared results on the 3rd of January 2009. We managed a transition and President Mills was sworn in and he carried on. It may not be the best of situations, but it is not the duty of the Electoral Commission to be talking about transitional matters. When you have serious election-related matters that you have not resolved. You have funding challenge, you have your device challenge, that your biometric verification devices, many of them are outmoded and not functioning very well, and we just saw that in the recent district level elections and so on and so forth. You have a number of challenges with your computer systems and programming. You need to be working at solving this. And if anything at all, make much more time.
Yeah.
Because the law, the CI says, make the final voter register available to registered political parties at least 21 days. Not 20, at least. It means you can make it available even earlier to help the political parties in identifying properly who is who and who is where.
Yeah.
That is what the Electoral Commission should be focusing on, but not try to shorten the time and crying more than the bereaved.
Kofi, tell me, I'm told there's another layer of what you call an obstacle.
Yeah.
Which is, if the Electoral Commission wants to push, first of all, I mean, in the case of presidential, it only needs to lay a CI in Parliament.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, becomes effective after 21 days.
That's true.
But in the case of parliamentary,
Yep.
there's got to be a 2/3 majority in Parliament to support that motion before.
That's very true.
So you're in Parliament. How does that work?
You realize that in 1992,
Yes.
presidential elections were held in November.
Yes.
7th November, earlier.
Yes.
And parliamentary was held on the 7th of what? December. Then we witnessed these boycotts by the losing party, that they didn't want to participate in the parliamentary process.
Yes.
It was the thinking then that, well, it didn't help our democracy. You knew then the party that was in government and that formed majority is a party, the NDC, believes in democracy. And so we thought that not being present in parliament, though the parliament worked effectively, is not the way to go. So it will do all of us good if we brought the two elections together. So both parliamentary and presidential was now put together. But because of the provision in the Constitution, I think Article 1124 of the Constitution makes it clear that the election of members of parliament can only be done 30 days before the dissolution of the existing parliament. And because the existing parliament stands dissolved on the 6th of January in the next year after the election year, when you calculate back, you get the 30 days on the 7th of what? December. So you cannot shift the elections of members of parliament to any date earlier than what has been provided by the Constitution.
I see.
To amend that provision, you need 2/3 of members of parliament voting for it. And that is about 183 members of parliament of the 275 current parliament as composed.
Practically impossible.
Well, if it was done, for example, with the spirit...
Given the positions that have been canvassed by the two major parties, that's
sure.
what I'm saying.
If it's done with the spirit that, okay, we are doing this with the anticipation of using it for 2028.
Okay, that's a different
Because
matter.
there is a 100% consensus by the political parties.
Yes.
It means that the political parties' representations in parliament will not have any difficulty.
Absolutely.
But clearly, as it stands now, we have 137.
Yes.
Our party's position is that we should not tamper with the date of elections as far as 2024 is concerned.
Okay.
So right from the word go, our 137 will not support this provision. And so therefore, you cannot have your 183 to have that provision amended.
That won't happen.
That won't happen. Two, if you look at the Electoral Commission's own budgets that was brought to Parliament through the finance minister for us to approve, no provision is made for a double elections, i.e., where you will have presidential on a separate date with the recruitment of its officers to be paid, and then a parliamentary elections on another date with the recruitment of its officers to be paid. Don't forget that, assuming without admitting, that if you shift the presidential alone to 7th November, and it is so conducted, and there's a need for a runoff, that runoff will have to happen even before the 7th December. So in that case, you will be having about 3 elections.
Whoa. And it has cost implications.
Cost implications, because you have to recruit presiding officers, you have to recruit all kinds of other officers will be repeated. In the case of combining the elections, you just have one presiding officer. You have one person responsible for the register. And the only additional persons you will have will be those who issue ballot papers. So when you combine the elections, you will only be adding one more table.
Okay.
And maybe one more ballot box and then a number of booths for the parliamentary process. But if you separate them, you will have to have a presiding officer. You will have to have an officer who checks the registers. You will have to have the verification table. You would have to have the ballot issuer and so on and so forth. So you recruit these persons and you have to repeat them in the next elections. And if there's a runoff, repeat them. Meanwhile, your own budget that you presented even have challenges.
Wow.
It's been cut by about 145 million cedis by when you presented it. What you wanted and what the ministry, the ceiling that the ministry gave you was less 145 million. And we've been working and encouraging the finance ministry to find resources to meet that shortfall of 145 million. That has also not happened.
Right.
Then now you want to even burden yourself. So the Electoral Commission is up on a journey that will lead them nowhere. They should focus on other real important things, finish those things up, and let's have our elections on the 7th of December. And we can consider the November date or any other date if towards the subsequent elections where there is consensus.
I see. I think that from everything you've said, I mean, I think it's quite clear that this is a near impossibility because even the funding part, and you're saying that when they brought the budget, there wasn't anything like that. So I don't know how the Electoral Commission intends to pull this off, but we'll see how that goes. And I think that you have beautifully articulated the position, and so I guess we're all on the same wavelength, on the same page. So we're not going to move to our next topic. I know that's Shamima's favorite topic, and that's about vote buy. And she's very, very concerned and very passionate about this madness, which is where people put themselves up for elections, and the same people you want to serve are saying that pay them before they allow you to serve them. Something is not right. And how do we begin to reorient and to socialize our people for them to understand that it's a wrong thing to do? So I'll come back. I will take a short break. When we come back, the WhatsApp line is very active. I've received some of your messages. I'll read them when I come back from this break.